Words kill. Words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose.
You know, that quote, it really gets to the heart of what we're going to talk about today. We're not just looking at words on their own, but at the entire system that gives them their punch, the power to shape our reality and build what we all call common sense.
So how is a society controlled? I mean, it's a massive question, right? We usually jump to thinking about the obvious stuff, force, the police, the military, but what if the real power, the most effective control, is the kind we don't even notice, the kind we actually agree to?
All right, so here's what we've got on the agenda. We're going to start with the big idea, the core theory of how power really operates. And then we're going to see it in action with a fascinating case study from 1970s Britain. And trust me, it's a story that still has a lot to say about our world right now. Okay, so let's start with the central puzzle. Think about it. So many societies have these huge, glaring inequalities in wealth and power. So why aren't they just constantly blowing up? How does the whole thing hang together without, nonstop revolution?
And this is where things get really interesting. On the one hand, you've got the straightforward stuff, rule by force. Think police, military, very visible, very explicit. But on the other hand, you have something called hegemony, and this is way more subtle. It's not about forcing you to do things. It's about getting you to want to do them, to believe that the way things are is just normal, the natural order of things.
So, this idea brings us to this brilliant thinker, Antonio Gramsci. And get this, he came up with all of this while sitting in a prison cell under Mussolini's fascist regime in Italy. His name for this whole process, cultural hegemony.
Now, it's super important to get this. Hegemony isn't brainwashing. It's not some kind of mind control. It's much deeper. It's the power to draw the lines on the map of what's considered normal. It makes certain ideas feel like common sense, while other ideas get pushed to the side as, radical, silly, or just completely out of bounds.
And Gramsci saw this creates this weird tension inside of us. He called it contradictory consciousness. So, for example, a worker might say out loud, yeah, it's my own fault I'm not doing better, because that's the story they've absorbed. But their actual lived experience, their day-to-day grind, is screaming that the system is stacked against them. It's that clash, right? Between the common sense idea and what you actually feel in your gut.
Okay, theory is great, but let's see how this actually plays out. We're going to jump in a time machine to 1970s Britain, and you have to picture it. The economy's a mess, there are strikes everywhere, a ton of social anxiety and racial tension. A lot of the old ways of life felt like they were just falling apart.
And right in the middle of all this, a new word explodes into public consciousness: mugging. It was actually imported from the US. And this is a perfect example of how a single word can become this giant bucket for all kinds of other fears. Mugging stopped being just about street crime. It became code for everything people were scared of, the direction society was headed, social change, you name it. And then you start to see the institutions of power really pick this up and run with it. Just listen to this quote from a judge back then. He's not just talking about punishing a crime, he's basically declaring war. The courts are positioning themselves as the leaders in the fight to put a stop to it. The panic is becoming official. So you have to ask, how did this happen? How did a street crime problem, and by the way, the stats at the time showed there wasn't some massive new crime wave, how did that turn into a full-blown national crisis? Well, the short answer is it didn't just happen. It was built. It was manufactured. And it happened through this incredible feedback loop. Step 1, the media starts screaming about this new crime of mugging. Step 2, the police, responding to the pressure, start focusing on it, which means, guess what? They make more arrests for it. Step 3, the courts see all these cases and hand down super harsh sentences to send a message. And then, Step 4, the media reports on these crazy sentences, which proves how serious the crisis is, and the whole cycle starts all over again. And this all came to a head with a specific case in an area called Handsworth. Now, a terrible crime happened, no question, but look at how the narrative was built around it. All the messy, complicated realities of the area, things like bad housing, no jobs, racial tensions, all of that just got erased. It was flattened into this really simple, scary story. This is a bad place, and bad people come from it. End of story.
I mean, just listen to the judge's words to the teenager he was sentencing. You are nothing more or less than a wild animal. That kind of language from someone in power is wow. It's incredibly potent. It's not just a sentence, it's a message to the entire country. It says, this isn't a person with problems we need to understand. This is an animal we need to lock away.
But here's the twist. what if this whole panic wasn't actually about mugging at all? The thinkers who analyzed this argued that this was all serving a much, much deeper political purpose.
Remember all that social upheaval we talked about? The strikes, the protests? Well, the fear of the mugger was the perfect distraction. It gave the government a way to rally people around a law and order platform. Instead of talking about the economy or politics, everyone was talking about crime. They created a single, scary enemy to unite everyone against.
And this is what Gramsci would call a crisis of hegemony. The old common sense, the old consent that held society together, was starting to crack. So this moral panic wasn't the cause of the problem, it was the solution. It was a tool to create a new common sense, a new consensus built on fear and the need for a stronger state to protect everyone.
Okay, so this all happened 50 years ago. Why are we talking about it now? Because this playbook, it's timeless. The tools for manufacturing consent, for creating these moral panics, they haven't gone anywhere. They're still some of the most powerful tools in politics today.
And really, that's the big takeaway here. If you understand this idea of hegemony, it's like getting a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, you can look at the news, at a political debate, at the latest storm on social media, and you can start to see the machinery working underneath. You can see how the crisis is being framed. So that really leaves us with a question to carry with us. When you look at the world today, what are the crises everyone is talking about, and what deeper anxieties might they be covering up? Who gets to define the problem? Who gets labeled the folk devil? And what common sense solution are we all being pushed towards? Because, like we said at the very beginning, words aren't just words, they build the world we live in.